Well, good day. It is the 26th of April, 2021. This video is going to provide the answers to two questions that you might have. Number one, the answer is one and the same. What agency, which federal special agent position or federal law enforcement position will require the most moves? And secondly, what does the Naval Criminal Investigative Service do? And the NCIS was formerly known as the Naval Investigative Service, and then they renamed it sometime afterward. And of course, I've never been a special agent with NIS or NCIS, but my roommate in the DEA Academy was an NIS agent who quit and went to DEA. And my second partner in Miami was an NIS agent who quit and went to the Broward Sheriff's Office and then went to DEA. Now, what did they have to say about it? And of course, they had both left the agency. And the answer is they didn't have a lot good to say about it. They referred to it as the Admiral's Mafia. So is it still the Admiral's Mafia? And the answer is yes and no. Not really. They have restructured the agency. So, of the three, and the Coast Guard is the most law enforcement oriented branch, but right now we're speaking of Defense Department. We have the Department of the Army, Department of the Navy, Department of the Air Force. Already done a video on the Army CID, the Department of Army Criminal Investigation Division, and that is primarily, almost exclusively run by enlisted special agents and warrant officer special agents. They are military personnel, and of course they have very limited jurisdiction because you're military personnel. You can't investigate civilians, you can't lock up civilians. They have a few criminal investigators who are GS 1811s. There's the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which I'll get to. And then there's NCIS, which handles the Navy and Marine Corps and any crimes involving the Department of the Navy. And this agency, unlike the Army, is almost exclusively staffed by civilian GS 1811 criminal investigators and is headed by a civilian who reports to the Secretary of the Navy. So they no longer report to a naval officer. And that has huge implications for how they conduct their investigations, which I'll get to in a moment. So what does the NCIS do? Well, they have two areas of law, basically. And again, working as criminal investigators for the Department of the Navy, you're going to be dealing with the United States Code, which is federal law. And NCIS special agents are special agents. They have the same arrest authority as FBI, DEA, ATF. So they have full federal arrest authority, on base, off base. They can arrest civilians. So it's a full federal criminal investigator position. Okay. So they work with the United States Code. And one specific case, and as I said, is it still the Admiral's Mafia? And the answer is, not really. And I'm going to give you an example of a case that they did, which was a brilliant case. It involved contract fraud against the United States Navy. And it's the so-called Fat Leonard case. They call it Fat Leonard because the guy who ran the scandal was the president of Glen Marine Defense International. And initially, NCIS got the complaint from a naval supply officer who was being overcharged 10 times by Fat Leonard's company for emptying sewage from a ship. And he took it to the NCIS, and they took it to their, because in an NCIS you're going to have both Navy bosses and your civilian boss. Initially, they took it to the Supply Corps of the Navy, and of course the naval officers kind of squashed the investigation. So then they took it to the United States Attorney's Office, who didn't squash the investigation. And by the time the indictments came down, they held a meeting of senior Navy officers, admirals, 200 admirals in 2012, told them 30 of you guys are under active federal investigation and indictments are coming down. And some of these guys they literally arrested and took them off of their ships that they were commanding. And they didn't go to kangaroo court, which is court-martial. They went to U.S. District Court. And the prize find was a special agent of the NCIS, who was the special agent in charge of Quantico at the time, which is their main office. and he was providing Fat Leonard with information on the investigation.
This man is in the midst of a multi-million-dollar Navy scandal, and he's admitted to 10 News Today he is guilty just moments before pleading before a judge. He traded Navy secrets for cash, lavish vacations, and prostitutes. Good evening, I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. 10 News reporter Allison Ash is now live downtown with how he spied on the Navy passing critical information to a defense contractor in Singapore. Allison.
Yeah, this case involves all kinds of intrigue. It even has a central character who goes by the name of Fat Leonard. He's accused of using all kinds of enticements to get big Navy contracts that he wants. Now, across the street over there at federal court today, John Beliveau called getting involved a catastrophic mistake. Did you take bribes?
Ma'am, I'm here today to plead guilty.
Guilty of conspiracy to commit bribery. Flanked by his attorneys, former Naval Intelligence Officer John Beliveau didn't have much to say before entering the federal courthouse, but inside he seemed determined to look his mistakes squarely in the eye. Guilty, Your Honor, he said, admitting he was a mole who fed Navy intelligence to this man, Leonard Francis. In exchange, Francis hooked Beliveau up with prostitutes, luxury travel, and envelopes full of cash. Attorney Gretchen Von Helm says her client was corrupted by another person. Wait a minute, Gretchen, are you calling your client a victim?
I am saying that my client's weaknesses were exploited thoroughly by other parties.
Those other parties include 3 Navy commanders who were accused of accepting bribes from Leonard's company, Glenn Defense Marine Asia, or GDMA, which got lucrative Navy contracts for food, water, and other services at ports of call. Belivau's involvement came later as he fed Leonard inside information on the probe into his billing practices. In one email to Francis, Beliveau threatens, "I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. I'm not an amateur." Perhaps not, but today Beliveau admitted he was in too deep.
I feel good doing the right thing, the honorable thing to do.
Now, Leonard Francis was actually arrested here in San Diego, and that's probably why the case that reaches halfway around the world is actually being tried here. It's estimated that this corruption scandal and bribery scandal will cost the Navy an estimated $7 million. We're live downtown. Allison Ash, 10 News.
And they were able to ensnare him by putting a false memo into the case file. And they figured out that Mr. Beliveau, who was a former special agent, now serving 12 years in federal prison, had also been corrupted by Fat Leonard. Now, they got Fat Leonard into San Diego by telling him that they were going to have a conference about how his company was going to assist the United States. And when he came to San Diego, they slapped the cuffs on him, and he's in jail. And a lot of these naval officers pled guilty and went to jail. And it ruined a lot of their careers, and probably a lot of them got away with it too, unfortunately. But it shows that this was a very good case. It was a case where they were on God's side, and they did a great contract fraud case. Now, is this all that the NCIS does? No, it's not even most of what they do. Most of what they do deals with the UCMJ. Unfortunately or fortunately, most of what they do does not make it to federal court. Most of what they do after they do their investigations is presented to a commanding officer who then decides whether or not to court-martial the people involved. And of course, most court-martials in the military involve military offenses. And most of the military judges, most of the military prosecutors are used to prosecuting UA, unauthorized absence. It's been gone for 6 months. Open and shut case, 60 days in the brig and a bad conduct discharge. Or disobedience of orders, or something that really doesn't involve the NCIS and really isn't really all that complicated. The prosecutors don't have to be Clarence Darrow, and the judge doesn't have to be Oliver Wendell Holmes. It's pretty open and shut. But when they get a complicated case, the NCIS really, unlike the TV version, is not really equipped to handle it, I don't think. And the military courts aren't too well equipped to handle it. And a lot of times what you will see is overzealous agents board agents doing cases, not particularly well, military courts handling them, and a lot of times they result in acquittals. And can I give some examples? Sure. Recent cases, the Illario Pentano case. Illario Pentano was a Marine officer who was accused by one of his subordinates of murdering 2 Iraqi civilians who were coming out of a house that was full of bomb-making material. Pentano went to general court-martial. The case was sloppily put together by the NCIS. It was being prosecuted again by military officers. And what they did do correctly, the military officer had the body of the man exhumed, because the accusation that had been brought by Pentano's subordinate was that the guy was running away from him and Pentano shot him in the back. Well, that wasn't the case. When they did the exhumation, they found, this was during the court-martial, this is months after the killing, that this had to be done this late in the game, you know, shows that the agents are not probably on the ball. But what it turned out is the man was shot in the front, just as Pentano had said. He was acquitted. And then Pentano very wisely resigned his commission in the Marine Corps. A second case is Gallagher, the Navy Chief SEAL, who was accused by someone in his command, someone under him, of having killed a 15-year-old, or maybe he was a 16-year-old, or maybe he was an 18-year-old ISIS fighter. Now, Gallagher was a corpsman by trade. That's a medic in the Navy. And he supposedly killed this kid. Now, again, the investigation was sloppily conducted. And during the trial, the prosecutor was removed by the judge because he was so bad. He had withheld evidence from the defense, which you're not supposed to do. And then one of the members of the command said, you know, Gallagher didn't kill this kid. I did, you know. So what they did convict Gallagher of is having a picture taken with the corpse of the kid, which is immoral. It's a bad thing to do, but I know a DEA agent who did it with Pablo Escobar, and he made millions from his Netflix series Narcos, so go figure. I don't think taking pictures with dead people that you've killed or had killed is a good thing, but at any rate, he was reduced to E6. President Trump gave him his rank back, and he honorably left the military. But those are circumstances where the NCIS was accused of being overzealous, having agents who are bored. And if you want to know about the average type of case that goes to court-martial, I would recommend you go to the Court of Appeals of the Armed Forces, because they have an opinions page, and you can read the cases that make it to general court-martial. If you want a job that moves a lot, this is the job for you. Now, if you're sent overseas, and you will be sent overseas, you will get military housing. What kind of housing do you get? It depends on your grade. A GS-13, for instance, is the equivalent of, roughly the equivalent of 04, lieutenant commander or major. Okay, this is from the NCIS website, and provides a little bit of synopsis on the qualifications. And one thing here, a mobility agreement, and understand that you're going to have to deploy overseas. Okay, so that's a big thing, and possibly to high-risk environments. But again, it's a little bit different than civilian law enforcement. It's a lot different. The qualifications: you can't have reached your 37th birthday, 21 to 37. Okay, you got to be U.S. citizen, pass a polygraph, top secret clearance. Competitive candidates have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. And then you complete the general FLETC training, 16 weeks for special agents, which is just a general criminal investigator training. And then you have to go through a specialized training for NCIS agents also. Right now they are not taking any applications. They have about 2,500 agents, about half the size of DEA, about a quarter size the FBI, and about a tenth the size of the Border Patrol. So again, if you want a job that moves around a lot, doesn't have a lot of street work, certainly you're not dealing with, you're not going to be on the streets of Baltimore or DC or on the border at El Paso or any of those places. You're not going to be getting into shootouts with people. You're not going to have to deal with crazy informants. Most of your work is going to be with Naval or Marines who behave badly and commit crimes that would be under the radar for civilian federal law enforcement, but certainly in there for the military justice system. Then this is the job for you. If you're looking for a job to get your foot in the door, this is the job for you. If you're looking for a job to get experience as an 1811 to move to another agency, this is the job for you. So, think about it. If it comes open, it's not open right now, but if the job opens up, apply for it. And if you get it, God bless you. And if you like it, stay with it. If you don't like it, you can use it for another agency. Okay, hope this was helpful.